In the coming years, there will be a question of that we can't get away from, due to the need to address the issues of global society as a whole. Right now, the structure of postmodernity is shielding nations from this demand, or even the possibility of this issue becoming a real concern. But it's gradually becoming more apparent that what affects us on one side of the world will also affect us on the other, as it does not matter how much we try to uphold our way of life if others are collapsing, and each crash, each conflict will have the same effect on prices and politics globally. Yet there is a way of understanding ourselves as a species which is not incompatible with the nation states which we now live in, and that is by seeing how the situation that we're in now has arrived in the present. As I've explained in previous videos, we have come into this situation through various phases, but if we go back to the start, then we'll see that the first stages of life occurred as microorganisms in the early universe. On Earth, life found a way to develop in the oceans, and then it evolved into various species of fish, amphibians, and then the ability to live on land. Then the self-regulating temperature we find in mammals. Then the ability to use tools, which turned into technology, which we learned as apes, and even as early hominids we lived in different societies, with various aims and ambitions, which the ability to use language and abstract ideas to further our destinies. So since then, the discussion of abstract thought, or what it is to be human, or where it's all going, began back in the ancient world, and through the Middle Ages, this developed into a complex situation. So it's only in the modern periods, really, that we've actually embarked on a discovery of the whole world, and that's led to the point that we're at today. So it's not unnatural that we live in different nations, each with their own politics and direction, and therefore it's the most natural thing to go forward from there. Hence, there is no incompatibility between the ideas that life itself is all basically the same thing, and that we're all creatures evolving on a cellular level, and the fact that there are different stages of evolution. In this sense, humans are no different from any other species from the overview perspective. But what makes us different is our culture, and in recent times, governments have come to increasingly recognize the fact that societies are made up of different groups of people, all of whom need representation within the framework of law. So globalization has led to improvements in human rights, racial and gender equality, and religious freedom. So we've got to see things in this way, as globalization is really just a case of people coming closer together, whereas before our economies and cultural belief systems were more separate and isolated. But as we build bigger economies, we're filling up the space between ourselves and bringing people into closer proximity. So people can keep their own cultures, they can keep their own religions. They need to know how to behave in relation to others, where perhaps maybe they didn't need to do this before. Some people are still relatively isolated and do not see themselves as part of global society. Others are more integrated but maintain the right to their own individual perspectives. So while the Anthropocene is not really a step forward in evolution, in the sense of the development of a new species, it represents a step forward in the development of humans as a species, in the sense that the mainstream societies that we have are all moving forward towards a new state of organization and having to incorporate a wider range of beliefs and values. This means that the overview of seeing ourselves as a species amongst other species and living on a planet while being subdivided into nations, religions, and cultures is something that we can understand with education systems which are now provided. Even if we see ourselves in terms of separate societies moving forward in different directions, especially with regard to the difference between East and West, now we can see ourselves more in terms of a common goal, or at least a shared responsibility for the planet, our politics, citizens' rights, nuclear weapons, and resources. In other words, after the events of the past few centuries, it is more of a logical step now for people to see ourselves as a single species, rather than a kind of great leap. And if people keep moving with the times, it might not even seem like a step at all. That is, if people are just going with the flow and seeing a world which is just moving forward all the time, which is especially the worldview of people who live in the big cities. However, there are also those who are more isolated in their own culture, well, evolution over time, and might not be able to realize how things are changing or how to respond. These people might become reactionary. Organization is infringing on rights they have already established. But the solution really is to be good at understanding your own culture and therefore realizing the way to act in relation to others. So once again, we're going to have a different people moving forward at different rates, with the big cities again closest to the cultural effect of global change, to the extent where perhaps we should be talking about the world living in different cultural paradigms and the various relationships people having or occurring within the context of those paradigms. So, as from the global overview perspective, we can maybe consider the global paradigm in terms of this model of human behavior, and this will become the basis for the governmental and scientific understanding of humans as we enter the Anthropocene.